Hey boys and girls, it's Mrs. Bran. I know you can't see me, but you can hear me. I'm a first grade teacher at Charles Elementary, and today we're going to be working on some story problems. And I'm going to post some practice pages for you to do that are differentiated, so different kinds of levels depending on where you are. And so I wanted to first do a problem together with you today. So I don't know about you, but I always teach my first graders a certain strategy to use when we're solving word problems. And maybe your teacher has taught you some strategies as well on how to solve these word problems. But today we're going to talk about the stop sign strategy. And I have included a link to the picture of the stop sign strategy, but I'm going to talk about it a couple times throughout our video, and I will be sure to remind you of the different steps of the stop sign strategy as we're working today. Okay, so anytime we have a word problem, the first thing we want to do is we want to read it completely. Okay, so I always tell my first grade friends, if they have a pencil nearby, to put their pencil down and let's read the story problem first. Okay, so if you want to read along, you're welcome to. Wendy had 11 empty paint cups and 4 full paint cups. How many paint cups did she have in all? Okay, so that's the first part of our stop sign strategy, is to read the whole thing first. So the reason for that is because sometimes when we work through a problem, if we don't read it all the way first, we might get confused or work too quickly, and maybe we'll try to answer another part of the problem that it's actually not asking. So we want to read the whole thing first to make sure that we know exactly what it's wanting us to do. Okay, and so I know that it wants us to find out how many paint cups did she have in all. Okay, and so it talked about some empty ones and full ones, but I want to know in all. So the next step of the stop sign strategy is I'm going to read through the problem again. This time I'm going to stop anytime I see the word and, okay, or a period. So here we go. Let's reread it again. Wendy had 11 empty paint cups. And there's that word and, so I'm going to stop right there. Now, I always tell my first grade friends, after we stop, okay, I want you to think back to what we just read. Wendy had 11 empty paint cups. What is something that is important for us to write down? Okay, because I always tell my first grade friends that we always want to take notes when working a story problem. Then that might help us build a number sentence to help us figure out what we're going to do to solve. Okay, so in this case, Wendy had 11 empty paint cups. I think it's pretty important that we write down the number 11 because I know from reading it the first time, I want to know how many she had in all. So this number might be important. So I'm going to just write down 11. Okay, then we're going to continue to read. 4 full paint cups, period. So we're going to stop again. So again, 4 full paint cups. That's probably a really good, important piece of information. Okay, so I'm going to write down the number 4. Okay, and now I'm going to keep reading. How many paint cups did she have in all? And that's not a period, but it's a question mark, and that's the end of our problem. So I'm going to stop there. So how many paint cups did she have in all? I don't know about you first grade friends, but what do I know about these two words here? In all. Do you think I'm going to add or subtract? You're right, we're going to add. So I am actually going to add these two numbers together to figure out how many paint cups Wendy has in all. Okay, and I'm going to use the addition strategy of counting on, where I'm going to grab my bigger number and I'm just going to start counting up from here. Okay, so if we have 11, count on with me. 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so how many paint cups did Wendy have in all? She had 15, right? Okay, so that is one way to solve this kind of problem. But friends, we know that not all problems ask us the questions like this one did. Okay, so I want to show you another problem. And we're going to use our stop sign strategy again for this problem. Okay, In this problem, the numbers are a little bit bigger, but they are less than 20, okay? All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to read the problem all the way through, okay? So here we go. It says, Mrs. Brand had 18 kids in her class. 12 of them were reading books, and the rest of them were on the computer. How many kids were on the computer? Okay, so now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna read again, and I'm gonna stop anytime I see the word and or a period, okay? And I'm gonna write down important information. So Mrs. Brand had 18 kids in her class, period. What do you think would be a really important piece of information to write down so far? 18? I agree. Let's write down 18. Okay. Now, 12 of them were reading books, and so I'm going to stop. 12 of them were reading books. What do you think is important on this part of the problem to write down? You're right, the number 12. And the rest were on the computer. There's not really anything to write there, is there? Okay. And now here's my question. It wants me to answer this. How many kids were on the computer? Okay. So if this is my total number of kids, okay, that is my biggest number, okay? So I know if I have 18 kids in my class, now I want you to think about your class, okay? Let's pretend there's 18 in your class, okay? 12 of them are reading books. Does that mean that 12 new friends come in the room reading books? No, that means part of these guys, okay, this is part of this number, okay? 12 of them are reading books, and it says the rest of them are on the computer. And I want to figure out how many were on the computer, okay? So if this is my biggest number, I don't want to go higher because I know that this is a part of this number. I want to subtract on this problem, right? So I have 18 kids, 12 of them are reading. How many are on that computer? Okay, now there's a few ways we can solve this one. Okay, we could certainly start at this number and count back, okay? Or we could use a number line. So on some of your problems today, there's already going to be a number line. Okay, so let me draw one for you really fast. I'll try to hurry. I only want 18 because that's the biggest number I've got. Oh boy, it's gonna be close. Whew! All right, so if we're at 18, boys and girls, we wanna count back 12. So count with me, are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. What number did I land on? That's right, 6. So there must be 6 friends on the computer. Now, some of your problems today are going to have the answer you're looking for. They may not be right here, okay? Some of them, what you're going to be figuring out might be in a different part of the problem. Kind of like how a couple weeks ago we were practicing with missing add-ins, okay? So that might be a little trickier for some of you, okay? So just remember, just because we read it in order like this, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be the very last part. We're always going to subtract just like this, or we're always going to add like we did over here with Wendy and her paint cups, okay? So sometimes that missing number might be in a different part of our number sentence, and that is going to be on some of the practice pages that you have for today. Now, On those practice pages, like I said, there's a lot of them, so you don't have to do all of them. You can pick and choose which ones you might want to try. And on there, I love those practice problems because it has a lot of areas where you can show your work differently. Because that's the cool thing about math is there's lots of different strategies to get to the very same answer. So like on this problem, we used a number line, but we didn't use one here, okay? And that's okay. We got the correct answer, okay? There's also going to be some, some base 10 squares. Sorry, I couldn't think of what they were for a second. Those base 10 squares where you can draw a picture to help you solve. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that you can figure those out. And so there's a lot of those on there for you to choose how you want to show your thinking. Okay, so don't feel like on the practice pages you have to do all of the boxes. Just use what you need in order to solve, okay? All right, let our teachers know if you have any questions and how we can help. Otherwise, good luck with your practice today. I'll see you soon, first graders.